All right, welcome back to the channel. So, David Benavidez responds to Jamal Charlo saying that he's going to move up to 168 pounds, or at least his team does. Let's talk about what his team is speaking through his father had to say about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, and thank you guys so much for your support in the by subscribing, the members to the channel, the people that support through the Venmo, the Cash App, and the live streams, and the super chats, and everybody that has joined as a patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. All right, man, let's talk about two of my favorite fighters in boxing. One is at 168 pounds. And the other is at 160 pounds. And there is an outside chance that these two guys might be fighting one another. The first guy is Jamal Charlo, the WBC 160-pound champion. And the other is David Benavidez, the WBC 168-pound champion. Now, if you're not familiar with David Benavidez, it's because David Benavidez is a younger fighter. Absolutely terrific fighter. And I think that he might be the best 168 pounder that there is right now. The other 168 champions are a little more experienced than he is, but I think the upside on his talent is exceptional. And I should rephrase that and say that two of the 168 pounders champions might be a little bit more experienced than him. The third, who is Caleb Plant, I think their experience levels are around the same. Both terrific fighters, but I think those guys are the best two 168 pounders. I think that they're better, and I would give them both the edge over both Callum Smith from the UK and Billy Joe Saunders. But to be honest with you, I don't think that there's a tremendous amount of difference in skill levels between the guys at 168. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Billy Joe Saunders were able to beat Caleb Plant, or if Callum Smith was able to beat, let me take that back. I would be very surprised if Callum Smith could beat David Benavidez or David Benavidez or Caleb Plant. So, but Billy Joe Saunders, I think, there's some wiggle room with him. But at the end of it, I think that there's a very good chance that David Benavidez could be the best guy. Now, Jamal Charlo is in a funny situation at 160 pounds because he's one of the better 160 pounders, but he's not really, getting an opportunity to show that because of the political landscape at 160 pounds. At 168 pounds, if he were to move up there, there's two champions that he has an opportunity to fight who are both fighting with the PBC. That's David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. But down where he is at 160 pounds, it's a lot harder for him to get the fights that he wants because of a couple things. Demetrius Andrade is with DAZN. So is Gennady Golovkin, and Canelo Alvarez is over there as well. Canelo Alvarez is with Golden Boy, and the other two are with Matchroom. So there's a little bit of difficulties making those fights for that reason, but also because he's not one of the big money guys in the division. Gennady Golovkin's not beaming to get in with him, and neither is and Canelo Alvarez. I don't think is the money issue because it's all the same for Canelo. He gets the same amount of money no matter who he's fighting. I think the problem that Canelo has with Jamal Charlo is that he hasn't wanted to fight Jamal Charlo, or at least their camps have not wanted them to fight Jamal Charlo since Jamal Charlo and he were both at 154 pounds. So he, in a conversation with a former WBC champion in Anthony Dirrell. Anthony Dirrell, by the way, lost his WBC title to David Benavidez. But in a conversation between Jamal Charlo and Anthony Dirrell, Jamal Charlo basically asked for permission to move up to 160. Hey man, if it's cool with you, I'm gonna move up to 168 and take over up at 168. And Anthony Dirrell was like, yeah, man, it's cool or whatever. And so that's when that whole conversation started. Now, David Benavidez's father was speaking on I think that it might have been, it was either Fight Hype or maybe ES News. Can't remember where it was, but it was, you know, one of these, one of the many like live streams, basically like recorded live streams that people are putting on their channel. He said that he would be looking forward to a fight with Jamal Charlo, and said that Jamal Charlo, that, you know, that it'd be an honor to fight him. He said he thought, the father of David Benavidez and Jose Benavidez said that he thought, you know, that it would be a very, very good fight. But at the end of the day, he didn't know whether or not, and here I think he gave away what he really thinks. He said he's not sure if they would feed Jermel Charlo to David Benavidez right now. Now, man, now when you say feed, that's telling you what you think. You feed somebody, you're feeding somebody to somebody else when, you know, you think it's going to be an easy fight, and they're like, you know, basically done with Jermel Charlo. Now, as far as that, how that fight itself turns out, I think I might give the edge to Jamal Charlo in that fight. I think I might give the edge to Jamal Charlo in that fight. Now, David Benavidez's father also mentioned, you know, and responded to the logic that I'm about to give you, which is that, you know, David Benavidez is a younger fighter. He's a younger fighter. He's a less experienced fighter. And, you know, comparing it kind of to like when Floyd Mayweather Jr. fought Canelo. Like, and I think it's fair to say that, you know, Canelo wasn't at, you know, he wasn't as at his absolute best when he fought Floyd Mayweather Jr. I personally don't think it would. I personally think the dude had over 40 fights. So it is what it is. But there's a logic that's out there that is not totally to be disregarded, that, you know, if Canelo Alvarez was a more mature fighter, that he might have been able to beat Floyd Mayweather Jr. So they're hoping that that Jamal Charlo, or at least that's the thinking of David Benavidez's father, that one of the reasons that Jamal Charlo might want to fight David Benavidez is that he would think that David Benavidez is just too inexperienced, and the more experienced Charlo would be able to beat him. And so, but they're not counting on that. My personal take on the matter is this: I would take Jamal Charlo in that fight because of Jamal Charlo's jab. I think that David Benavidez is a very, very good fighter, but he's a very, very aggressive fighter, and I see him trying to, in most fights, he really is trying to walk down, and he does walk down his opponent. And the perfect example of it was his last fight when he got his WBC championship back, because he originally had won it, then it got stripped from him because, you know, he failed a drug test, not for performance enhancing drug, but for a recreational one. And so when he won it back against Anthony Durrell, that's pretty much what he did. The entire fight was just really just walk straight towards him. He didn't eat a lot of shots because he's got a pretty shifty, guard, but just he's kind of like a Jarrett Hurd type of approach, but he doesn't take nearly as much. It doesn't take nearly the amount of punishment Jarrett Hurd does. He's got significantly faster hands than Jarrett Hurd, and I think he's got more pop than Jarrett Hurd. But the whole just walk you down, you know, stalk you and walk you down thing, that's how David Benavidez approaches those fights. With Jamal Charlo, I think that David Benavidez would be very surprised about how big Jermel Charlo would be at 168 pounds. Because Jermel Charlo, I still have no clue how he ever got down to 154 pounds as big as he is. And at middleweight, he's still a big middleweight. At 160 pounds, he's a big dude. And you can see, and just like the way that he's training and the way that he weighs in, that he is nowhere near there's enough room for him to make 168 pounds and be comfortable at 168 pounds. David Benavidez, even though that's the case, David Benavidez is even bigger, and David Benavidez is probably going to wind up at light heavyweight, but still, David Benavidez would be the bigger guy. But I don't know, man, with that style, if what he's going to try to do is just walk Jamal Charlo down, and then eventually think he's going to start catching Jamal Charlo with real crisp shots, I believe if Jamal Charlo is anything like Jermel Charlo, though I have to look to see if he's actually done this in this fight, but since his brother can do it very well, I doubt very much that Jamal Charlo can't pull it out, which is to fight on the outside. When Jermel Charlo wants to be evasive and wants to fight on the outside, he has the foot speed and the athleticism to do that, and he's got the jab to do it. And I think that Jamal Charlo could very well do the same thing. Just if it's a case at 168 where the guy's a little stronger, he goes into boxing mode. And if for me, the advantage between a boxing match would go to Jermel Charlo because of that jab and the straight right hand, and the fact that David Benavides really doesn't. I mean, he has a jab, but that's really not what he's setting stuff up on. So I certainly hope to see the fight. But what I would like to see more so is for Canelo Alvarez and the 160-pound fighters to fight Jamal Charlo. I know there's a thing out there about Demetrius Andrade and Jamal Charlo not necessarily wanting to fight Demetrius Andrade, but hey man, it is what it is, man. Ain't nobody perfect. But this fight at 168 would be good. I would worry more about Jamal Charlo against Caleb Plant than I would against David Benavides, though, because of the different styles of the fighters. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.